Welcome. My name is Barry. I lead the product management team in the UK and Ireland. For the past 4 years in EPAM, I've been applying what I've learned over more than 20 years in product and tech leadership about understanding customer needs to a new challenge, understanding EPAM's clients and their customers. Today, we're talking about something that I think is critical if you're building solutions for your clients, how to dive deeper into what the client is really asking for. Imagine a patient walks into a doctor's office, hands over a slip of paper and says, "This is what I need." What's the first thing a good doctor would do before just writing out a prescription? Well, they'd want to understand the problem that the patient is experiencing. That's what we're here to talk about in our world of tech. So my goal here is to share a mindset, a way of approaching client requests that help us get to the heart of what they need. Now, why this? Why this ability to dive deeper? Why is it so important to us right now? Our clients always come to us looking to solve some kind of problem. It might be via an RFP, it might be an informal chat, a direct request, but most often they're coming to us with a solution without outlining the problem that they are trying to solve. And we could just build that. We are great technologists after all. But here are some reasons why this matters now more than ever. Firstly, it's about moving up the value chain. When we simply execute on a prescriptive request, we're providing our skilled hands. But when we show our clients that we care deeply about the real problem they're trying to solve and co-create the best solution, we become strategic partners. Now, that is where the real value lies for them and for us. It's fostering deeper, more resilient client relationships. Secondly, it's about delivering genuine impact. We want, like everyone, our work to matter. And building precisely what's asked for doesn't guarantee it solves the underlying business challenge. By diving deeper, we're helping to ensure the solutions we build deliver tangible results and solve real pain points. That is true client centricity in action. Thirdly, this approach inherently reduces the risk of wasted spend. How many projects get delivered but ultimately fail because the initial ask wasn't the actual need? Getting to the core problem up front saves headaches, time, and all of that money down the line. And beyond that, understanding the why fosters innovation. When we really grasp the problem, we can propose solutions the client might never have considered. We can leverage the breadth of our expertise and of the technology that we have available to us to deliver something transformative, not just transactional. This is how we differentiate ourselves and how we help our clients differentiate themselves. This is about empowering teams and contributing to strategy. Whatever your role in a project, understanding the why behind the what makes your contribution more strategic, more focused. It allows us to bring our humble and smart ethos right to the front, not just in how we build, but in what we build and why we build it. So even if the client's initial idea seems perfectly fine, digging a little deeper to understand the drivers, the why, can only strengthen our approach and strengthen the solutions we deliver. So the question becomes, how do we consistently do that? How do we really understand the why behind the what? So that's what we're going to explore today with a more practical framework. So how do we build these muscles by diving deeper? How do we build this mindset? It's not about something rigid and prescriptive, but a framework for thinking and a mindset for approaching the challenge. It's got a few key components that when you use them together, they help us uncover the real needs behind the initial ask and frame your response in a way that shows the value that we can add. So they are guiding principles for an investigation. We're going to talk about 5 core elements. First, collaborating. This isn't a solo mission. We need diverse perspectives. Second, doing the homework. Before we start talking deeply with a client on a specific ask, there's groundwork to do. This is where we build our foundational understanding. Third, Framing the problem. This is about taking what we know and forming a clear hypothesis about the actual problem we're trying to solve. Fourth, asking the right questions. With our homework done and a hypothesis in mind, we can formulate really great questions that uncover deeper layers. And finally, reframing the problem as an opportunity. This is where we transform our understanding into a vision for creating value and show the value that we can add. So we're going to talk about research, and we're going to talk about thinking deeply. So before we start, a quick note on using AI. Do it. You have to. The goal here is for you and the team working on responding to a client ask to think deeply, to connect dots and engage empathically with the client and their needs. So you have to use the tools to go fast, to explore the edges, use AI to accelerate, go further in less time than would have been possible before. Have it challenge your thinking, suggest enhancements. There is, of course, a whole suite of EPAM AI accelerators and endless information on how to use them. That's not our goal here. The goal of this process is for you and the team to develop a genuine understanding and an empathy for the client's challenge. They engage with us, they, the client, engage with us when you show that deep, authentic interest and understanding. So leverage AI for speed, for breadth, but remember, the AI can retrieve the information, it can present it, it can synthesize it, and it can help you think about it. But it can't build that human empathy or understand the nuances for you. That part is all you. So with that in mind, let's look at the first part of our framework. Our first core element is get collaborating. Understanding a complex client ask is a team sport. I've had the most success when thinking with others. So while this session is focused on understanding the problem underlying the ask, I do want to add this. Ultimately, our clients are coming to us not to identify a problem, but to solve it. So understanding the problem is at the core of that, but it's by no means the end of it. So when a request comes in whatever form it comes in, our individual perspectives can sometimes limit our view. So bring in someone with a product mindset who thinks about the why, the user value and the business outcomes. Bring in someone focused on delivery excellence who thinks about feasibility, thinks about timelines, potential roadblocks. And bring in a solution architect who can explore the technical possibilities, the constraints, the integration points. Each of these viewpoints is critical. When we bring them together, even a little while, we're expanding our collective thinking and starting to see the challenge from multiple angles. So yes, ultimately our clients are coming to us to solve a problem, even if they present it as a fully formed solution. Bringing different lenses together helps us with a few things. It helps ensure we're not just focused on the technical build, but on the business problem and vice versa. We're focused on the desired outcome. It helps us to stress test our initial assumptions. And it helps us make sure we're not missing something obvious before we start talking to the client in detail. So this approach lets us form an initial hypothesis about the solution that really addresses the client's world, their problem, and the value that we can bring. So we've got our collaborative mindset switched on. The next thing is doing the homework. There's just no getting around this part if we want to truly understand the context behind the client's request. So before we start quizzing them, and sometimes before we even can talk to them directly, in the case of RFPs, we need to build a foundational understanding of their world. This is about preparing ourselves to ask smarter questions, make smarter hypotheses. And when we do this work, it's visible. It demonstrates to the client that we are deeply engaged with their request and their business. It shows we're not just reacting to a line item in an RFP, but thinking holistically. And importantly, this research that we do helps us get past those straightforward surface level questions and dive deeper quicker. It's giving us the foundation for the next steps of framing the problem and eventually reframing it as an opportunity. So if you're already embedded in the client, you might have some of these answers, which is a really great starting point, but it still needs to be done. So what are we looking for in this homework phase? There can be lots of ground to cover. So this is where you leverage the people you're working with. You leverage AI, of course, to do the legwork. But specifically, we want to get a grasp on a few things, like the vision, mission, and strategy. Where are they trying to go? What are their big picture ambitions? Their business model, how do they make money? What are their key revenue streams? Where are they investing? What are their major costs? What's their operating model? Public companies have tons of this information in their annual reports. Thirdly, their products and services, and crucially, of course, who their customers are. What problems do their offerings solve, the client's offerings solve for their customers? What do their end users really care about? Can we even sketch out some high-level personas? And then, this is a really useful one, often overlooked. Who are the key people in the organization, especially those relevant to the request? Who are they? What are their roles, their responsibilities? What have they written about? What are they posting on LinkedIn? What are their priorities? And really importantly, of course, the industry context. What are their competitors up to? How is the industry as a whole embracing technology? How is that changing customer expectations? Not an exhaustive list, but some key areas of investigation. So really, you're trying to engage your curiosity. All of this gives us context. It's helping us place the client's ask into a rich landscape of information. So where do we find all of this? There are, of course, lots of sources, and your team and the AI can divide and conquer. But things like annual reports are a goldmine for public companies. Company websites, of course. I've found a surprising amount of stuff in interviews on YouTube, or articles and posts people written on LinkedIn or on Medium, on blogs, industry news sites, competitor analyses, research sites like Statista can be useful if you've got access. It all adds to the picture. And as I mentioned earlier, leverage the tools. Internally, I've used things like agent workflows and Codemy to help streamline this kind of research. Dial's great for pulling together details, creating summaries quickly. So the goal here isn't necessarily to become an expert in their business overnight, but to gather enough intelligence to start unpicking the ask from the client and see it in its proper strategic context. So in practical terms, at least for me, all of this makes its way into an ever-expanding Miro board. Other tools are available, of course, where you can gather together the information, collaborate on it, and occasionally, depending on the need and the audience, write it up into an actual, honest-to-goodness, written briefing document. All of these things are helpful, but what's important is surfacing it, making it transparent, and being able to collaborate. All right, so we have gathered their intelligence. Now comes a critical step, framing the problem. This is where we take the client's ask, which, as we've discussed, is often a solution, and we work backwards to form a clear hypothesis about the actual underlying problem that they're trying to solve. A testable hypothesis, something you can test by asking the client questions. Now, building a good hypothesis, of course, is a whole other talk and out of scope for this discussion, but it does need to be a good one. The goal here is to systematically lay out our current understanding. Ask ourselves the questions we should already be able to make a first pass at based on our groundwork and all that homework. This is all before we talk to the client further. I find a mind map is a great way to do this. Start with the client's direct ask, branch out with key questions. This helps us uncover the unsaid, tease out our own assumptions, and even identify gaps in our understanding all before we go back to the client a load of questions. And if we can't formulate at least a tentative answer to these framing questions, which we'll look at in a second, it's a clear sign we have more homework to do. Or if we can't, through our homework, answer these questions, that these are key areas to probe on when we do talk to the client. So key questions to ask ourselves then. What are these framing questions? These help us peel back those first layers of the onion and ensure we don't waste the client's time with restating the obvious. You'll recognize these, of course, but you need to be systematic and deliberate about it. Write the questions down and write down your answers. First, what is the real problem? What's the client really trying to solve? This is absolutely key. The ask implies a problem, and our job is to articulate that problem as a clear and testable hypothesis. And then why it is a problem. What happened? What's changed with our client? What are the drivers making this an issue now? Thirdly, who is it a problem for? Is it for specific users? Is it internal teams? Is it the business as a whole? The more specific we can be, the better. And how and when is this problem manifesting? What are the tangible symptoms of it? What pain points are being experienced? And then continuing, how will we and the client know when this problem has been solved? This helps us direct towards measurable outcomes. It helps define what success actually looks like. We need to identify what our constraints are, our known constraints. Are we looking at budget or timeline, existing technology, regulations? What is it that's limiting our solution space? And really a big one, like the success one, what assumptions are we making? What logical leaps have we taken? What are we inferring from the client's ask or our own research that isn't explicitly stated? It's really vital because we can validate assumptions either through research or by asking questions. So this is one of the most powerful and often overlooked. We are all making assumptions. The key is to make them visible so that we can test them. Key to hypotheses, of course. And then finally, there we are. What are our blind spots? What do we know that we don't know? Acknowledging these up front turns them from hidden risks into areas for focused inquiry. So by thinking all of this through systematically, documenting our initial hypotheses, we build a much richer, much more nuanced understanding. It doesn't mean we have all the answers, but it means we're exceptionally well prepared for the next stage, taking our refined questions to the client. Okay, so let's put this framing the problem thinking to work with a hypothetical scenario. So imagine we've got a client, we've got an airline, and they come to us with a specific request. They want us to build and integrate an improved customer call handling system. It seems pretty straightforward. Now, let's say through our initial do the homework phase, maybe in the RFP even, we've got a little additional context. This is a simple example. So we know they're an airline, but we've also discovered that there's an upcoming sporting event in their home country, which implies a potential surge in travel and inquiries up front. Crucially, we know from our research that they've got a poor NPS from customers that have already experienced their current support system. So with this ask, in this context, our team, having collaborated and done some homework, gone through some framing, we can now sit down and go through these questions that we've discussed. So we can take a few of those framing questions and see what hypotheses we might form. Remember, at this point, these are internal thoughts, talking and thinking together, drawing from the research and all the context that we have. So what problem is the client really trying to solve? Well, we know they've got poor NPS. We know there's an upcoming event. It's likely more than just that they need a new system, but they're probably fundamentally trying to improve customer satisfaction and overall experience. They're probably looking to reduce frustration in the customer, the wait times that they have, streamline that entire support process, and they've got an event looming, they're almost certainly looking to protect and probably enhance their brand reputation when it's really visible and there's extra stress on their systems. So who's it a problem for? Well, clearly it's a problem for their customers, the ones that are experiencing poor service. It's definitely a problem for the customer support team, who are probably overwhelmed and stressed and only likely to become more so. Maybe they're lacking the right tools. But ultimately, it's a big problem for the airline itself. It's impacting loyalty. It's impacting probably future bookings and impacting their brand image. And we could go on, through brainstorming, lots of potential answers to these questions. And so what does success look like? How will we know when this problem is solved? Well, we'd expect to see NPS go up. We'd look for decreased call abandonment rates. We'd want to see positive feedback from their own support representatives. And we want them more empowered, less frustrated. So that's often translating directly to better customer interactions and probably long-term improved customer retention. And what about our known constraints? Well, through the research that we've done, we've got this upcoming major sporting event, an immovable deadline that we need to work around and work to. That's going to help drive our solutioning. There could be budget constraints, of course. There could be, probably is, existing legacy systems that we need to integrate with in one way or another. All of this disciplined thinking is what's preparing us to have a really insightful conversation with the client when we talk to them. So having done this internal framing, we're in a much stronger position to do what we're going to do next. Actually talk to the client, ask some questions that help us demonstrate the work that we've done and, really importantly, test our thinking so far. So let's talk a little about asking the right questions. We want questions that unlock these deeper insights that we're looking for, and good questions share common characteristics. And again, you'll recognize these from talking to individuals. They are open-ended. They can't be answered with a simple yes or no. They're inviting elaboration. They're encouraging the people we talk to share more information, share their perspective. Good questions are outcome-focused. They're exploring the results that we want, the goals and objectives. Good questions are probing, but sensitively so. They're digging deeper into the challenges, into the motivations, into the why behind the what. They're helping to uncover what really matters. And of course, this is the point at which you're bringing your EQ, you're bringing tact, you're bringing empathy. Good questions are context aware. They show that you've done your homework. And at this point, of course, you have. Good questions are not just outcome focused, but future oriented. They're looking ahead, especially to goals and to outcomes. And importantly, they're empowering ownership. They are fostering a sense of collaboration. They drive a conversation that feels like a partnership between the people we're talking to and us. It's not just about quizzing someone to get answers and write them in a spreadsheet, but about enabling that empowered partnership. So it's all about moving away from an interrogation towards a partnership. So now that we're actually talking to the client, asking those insightful questions is important, but active listening is easily as important. And this is another opportunity to demonstrate your deep curiosity, your genuine engagement in the problem space, because you're building trust and building partnership. So give whoever you're talking to your undivided attention. Do things like paraphrase and play back what you've heard. Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. Gain further insight. If something's not clear, or you sense that there's something underneath the surface, don't be afraid to ask for collaboration. This is all important because you're demonstrating empathy. It means acknowledging and validating the challenges that the people that you're talking to face. And by actively listening and by demonstrating empathy, you're creating space for collaboration, for co-creation. And again, you're building trust. So now with all of this information, this validated understanding of the client's real challenges, what can we do with it? We don't just solve the problem. We want to aim higher. Through our collaboration, our homework, the problem framing, the insightful questions, the active listening, we have developed a solid understanding of the real ask. We've grasped the challenge, the real problem statement, and we see the context that it's operating inside. This is where we move beyond just being problem solvers. This is where reframing the problem as an opportunity helps us move from being a problem solver to being a value creator. And this is where true client centricity is elevating our partnership. So we bring a growth mindset, a partnership approach, relentless focus on outcomes that are going to drive real value for their business. And I really do believe that every customer problem, every challenge that the customer, our client faces, presents an opportunity for both of us, an opportunity for value creation. So by reframing, we're actively working to do a number of things. We're shifting our collective mindset, both us and the client, from constraints to possibilities. So instead of just seeing the limitations, we start to see breakthroughs. We're looking beyond the surface level issue to identify the deeper, sometimes unstated, underlying needs and strategic goals. What is an even bigger win that they might not even be articulating yet? We're looking to explore something creative that not only solves the immediate problem, but also delivers maybe unexpected results, unexpected benefits. How can we make this solution work even harder for them? And ultimately, we're looking to uncover new ways to create significant value for the customer, differentiate their offering in their market. How is the solution that we co-create going to contribute to their competitive advantage? Now, this isn't about ignoring the client's original request. It's about enriching it. It's about expanding the vision, showing them how we can deliver something even more impactful than they might have initially imagined. So what questions do we ask ourselves? What questions do we work on collaboratively with the client to facilitate this reframing? Firstly, what are the underlying needs or strategic goals that are still not being fully met, even if we solve the stated problem? We ask ourselves this together. It pushes us to think bigger. Secondly, how could solving this problem actually create additional value for the client beyond the immediate fix? What are the adjacent opportunities? What we're looking at here, as we go through these questions that we work with the client, is an opportunity to workshop and co-create together. Thirdly, from an EPAM perspective, what innovative approaches, what technologies, what expertise can we bring to bear that might transform this from a simple solution to something much more game-changing? This is where our really deep, forward-looking, cutting-edge technology comes in. And critically, how could the solution we envision together help differentiate the client's offering and provide them with sustainable competitive advantage? How do we help them win in their market? This is ultimately our goal. So, a couple of words of caution here before we wrap up. As I mentioned before, not every client, not every circumstance is going to be receptive to a radical reframing of the thing that they've brought to us, or even to ask to have their ask unpicked in this way. Sometimes they genuinely do just want us to do the job that they've asked us to do. How, when, and if you decide to pitch this to the client is really important. It mustn't look like you're dodging the original ask, nor look like you're pitching for additional work without addressing their needs. But even if you don't formally present a grand reframed vision, going through this thinking process, doing it internally, ensures that we understand the maximum potential value. It better informs our solution, it better informs our delivery, and I really believe makes it more likely that we win the work and deliver exceptional results because we're thinking several steps ahead. So, we've seen that true client centricity isn't just a buzzword, it's about systematically building empathy for the challenges and for the problems our clients are trying to solve. It's about demonstrating through our actions, through our insights, that their success is genuinely what matters most to us. Our goal through this whole process is to think deeply, to connect dots, to show our clients that we're not just focused on delivering a piece of technology, but on understanding and solving the core problem in a way that delivers maximum value. So we've walked through a framework that helps us do exactly that. Starting with getting collaborating. Here we are, getting collaborating, bringing diverse perspectives together from the outset. Then doing the homework, building that crucial foundational understanding of the client and their world, followed by framing the problem, delivering or thinking about an internal hypothesis about the real underlying challenge. And then moving on to asking the right questions, listening actively, engaging the client to validate, to refine, to deepen our understanding through a really meaningful back and forth with them. And then finally, reframing that problem as an opportunity, shifting the conversation from a simple problem fix, maybe through complex technology, to something that creates strategic value and demonstrates true partnership. So, the next time a client comes to you with an ask or you're involved in an RFP, I encourage you to pause, to engage this framework, this mindset, this way of thinking, and to challenge yourself and your team to dive deeper. The insights you uncover, the value you create might just surprise both you and the client. So, thank you very much. To talk about this and more, get in touch.